Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew-Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew-Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew-Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew-Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew-Built Conicals. You can trust Brew-Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew-Built at morebeer.com.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the session. I'm your host, Justin Crosley, back 2 days in a row now. I had a show yesterday, too, which is fun. We had the guys from, you know them, Vito. They're big fans of yours.
Yeah, Brewhall.
Brewhall, yeah, from Benicia out there. And, yeah, like I said, big fans of yours. I am here with my home brewing friends, some pro brewing friends, some old friends, some family friends. This is an exciting show. It's the Brewing Network doing a homebrew show.
Absolutely fantastic.
Right? Which our fans will make fun of me for forever. In the studio with me today, Vito DeLucci. Welcome, Vito.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
He's of More Beer fame, among other things. Matt Sager from Danville Brewing Company is with us today.
Thank you so much.
My good friend Lee McDole is here with us today. Welcome, Lee.
Thanks for having me.
And Tasty's brother, Dan, right? Dan McDole is also here in the studio today, which is exciting. Well, it's like a familiar face over there, Dan. And then my oldest homebrewing friend, not by age, but by friend, Chris Graham is back in the studio. Yeah. And this is the Dortmunder show because Chris Graham and I homebrewed a beer together. And we're going to enter it into the national homebrew competition. We have entered it.
You just gave away the whole show.
Yeah, we're done. Which neither of us have ever done before.
No, that was the cool part. When you suggested it, I was like, I guess we could do that.
I've only ever entered one competition. It was like in year 2 of this thing. So like 2006. And I think I won a medal for it, actually.
What?
I think I got like a bronze. I'm
why
probably
is that
lying.
Hanging up here?
Because I'm probably lying, but I remember. It seemed to remember I got something for it. Maybe I got like honorable mention.
Participation award.
Yeah, maybe it was that.
They were doing certificates for a while.
You might have been that.
You were here.
Yeah, and it wasn't the national competition. It was some small competition. And anyway, that's the last time that I've homebrewed. No, not the last time that I've homebrewed, but the last time I entered a beer competition. So,
well, let's be honest. Did you really homebrew this?
This one, I watched you do a lot of it. I was there and then in spirit too. So we're going to talk about the whole process and the idea and everything today. Let me get through a few items of business. First, thanks to our sponsor, More Beer. Chris Graham knows them well. Chris Graham agreed to sponsor my show before I ever even did a show. And he's regretted it ever since.
Favorite mistake.
Yeah. Go to morebeer.com. My favorite thing to check out while you're there is anything that says Comos on it. It just blows my mind. I used my kegerator this weekend at the Firestone Invitational Beer Festival. RV. Yeah, brought sand to the beach. Why not? And had beer out of it for that. It's always in my RV. I have the Comos jockey box, which is incredible. My favorite part about the Comos, I have 2 favorite parts about the one I have. One is that instead of coils, I have a plate chiller at the bottom of mine so I can put beer on top. But my other actual really favorite part is a more simple apparatus, and that's that the taps, the Comos taps, automatically snap back.
Spring load.
They're spring loaded.
Ingenious.
And I didn't even know that when I got the thing. I get home and I played with it for like a half an hour because I just couldn't believe how many times have you left the tap open on your jockey box accidentally or bumped it?
Bumped it, yeah.
Right? That's usually what
Yeah,
happens.
that's more the case.
Matt's looking at you like zero.
None.
Who leaves it open?
Or anybody, if you're at a party, somebody bumps it or whatever.
Sure.
And I'm talking.
Or if you drive with it in an RV.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm talking about a pretty hefty spring here. I mean, it like really snaps back. So the entire line of Komos anything, I'm just a massive fan. I'm going to get it tattooed on my back, I think.
Well, guess what we're giving away this month on Free Beer Friday?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Jockey box?
The Komos Rubicon jockey box. That exact one.
The one I have with the plate chiller?
Yep.
Oh, someone is going to be very
And
happy.
guess what you and I are giving away at Club Night in addition to that one?
What?
Another one.
Excellent. I think it's great. Like, I didn't know. I've never seen the plate chiller version until I went to the showroom.
It's perfect for homebrewers. I don't think they're very ideal for a commercial beer. Or, I mean, if you're keeping your keg very cold at the festival, then it's fine. But it's only like 12 and a half feet of stainless in there.
I see.
So it's not a long contact time. But I think for most homebrewers, it's great.
Okay.
We have a 4-tap jockey box, and the coils are pretty short. So anything over about 70 degrees, we have to cool
Ice
our
it
kegs
down.
down. Yeah, ice our kegs down, yeah.
I love it. It's great. Go to morebeer.com, check it out, and tell them I sent you. Tell them Chris sent you, too, because he's here sending you. Okay. Ways to support the show. I get asked all the time still. You can still support us by clicking the donate button on our homepage. You can do one time or you can sign up for a recurring donation. A lot of you have been doing it for so long, so many years. I appreciate it. It still pays my rent. The bar doesn't pay me anything. You guys pay my rent, and I appreciate it very much. Also, if you don't have any extra dollars, that's okay. You could do your Amazon shopping. I know you all shop on Amazon. I've never met anybody who doesn't shop on Amazon. You could do your Amazon shopping by clicking the link on our homepage. There's like a banner, and that helps us out. The other thing you do is just let our sponsors know that you heard them here on the show. We got a lot of them, and they'd love to hear from you. For example, Beersmith, the Beersmith brewing software. He loves to hear from you, and you can download that for free for 21 days. So since we're talking homebrew, I might as well mention a great homebrewing software is Beersmith. Go to beersmith.com and check it out. Also, we love to hear from you, so please send your feedback to feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com. All right, that's everything else is fun now today. Okay, so I have this. I don't know what happened, but Chris Graham and I have just been, even before we kind of reconnected about it, have been getting like back into homebrewing. Now, of course, we've always been in like the homebrewing world. I mean, for Christ's sake, Chris owns a homebrew shop, but this is different. We both sort of on our own just started geeking out again on homebrew stuff. And then we got together for a beer. And then I realized you were like actually brewing. You had a new all-in-one system that you were brewing on a lot. You've got the Free Beer Fridays and different things like that happening. And so I think I just sent you a text one day because we had already said, hey, we should brew together. And we didn't really know when, or kind of say that all the time. And then it never happens. But I got an email one day, as I always do, because I'm a member of the American Homebrewers Association, which you should be too, that said entries are due, and it gave like whatever the deadline was. And I went, oh, you know what? I think Chris and I should do this. I hadn't talked to you, but I was certain you've never entered.
No.
You've been going for longer than me, but I've been going for 18 years or something, 17 years.
2001 in Dallas.
Okay. And so 05 or 06 would have been my first one, right? So, and I just knew you'd never done the competition, though. You're always there for work, right? Like, you know, we do the booth and help out with other things.
And to be brutally honest, it's like I don't want to compete with our customers. That's not a goal of mine, to be entering to take spots away from them.
Right. But nowadays, and I think that you and I just being in the industry, it's just healthy for us to be homebrewing, right?
Absolutely.
So I just texted Chris and said, I think we should brew a beer and enter it into the competition.
So I wrote him back, like, awesome. Like, what kind of beer do you want to make? And I'm thinking he's going to say a hazy or some crap I don't want.
No.
And he goes back
Milkshake
with
IPA.
He comes back with two styles of beer.
Yeah. Pale ale, of course, because I always just want a pale ale. And I think I've probably only ever brewed four types of beer. So I've almost exclusively brewed pale ales.
All 4 batches.
Yeah. But the other one on my list was a Dortmunder. And the reason was I just love the style. But I remembered early on in the Brewing Network days, 2 people bringing in delicious Dortmunders. And that's Doc. He had a really good recipe. And Tasty. And Tasty won a silver medal with his Dortmunder. I remembered that. And I just loved it when they brought that beer in. And about once a year, I think they would both brew it. It was just kind of a hit for them everywhere they went. So I posed both of those to you, Chris.
Yeah, he posed them both. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. We'll choose one. And I promptly went back to work and forgot all about this. And then later that night, I think I went to look at my emails because I'm also an AHA member, which you should be if you're not.
Yep.
And I see that we missed the deadline. It was like 5 o'clock that day.
Oh.
And I looked at it at like 5:30. I'm like, oh, crap. So whatever, we missed it. I'll just not tell Justin.
Forgot all about it.
We'll
Yeah.
just move along in life.
I would have forgotten about it eventually.
But then I think it was the next day or 2 days later, like an email comes out. We extended it. I'm like, awesome. This is fate. We're doing it. So I sign us up. And as I'm signing up, I try to text him and he doesn't answer, of course. And I'm like, all right, well, we're going to do a Dortmunder. That sounds more fun. I'd rather have a Dortmunder on tap at home than anything else.
Right.
And so I go through and I'm like, and we hadn't talked about it, but I'm like, those 2 beer styles, we're in tasty territory.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, it makes you say like who brewed it. And I put your and I's name because I didn't know what we were going to do next.
Yeah.
And then it said name the beer. And I'm like, Tasty's Treats.
Tasty's Treats.
And if you don't know what a Tasty's Treat is, it's something pretty special.
Yeah. Ours is not as special, but
well, it doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah. It has a cool name though.
And then I put in, I don't know, whatever else you have to in the style, which is no longer even 1E anymore. It's grouped under other styles and this, that, and the other. And then submit that in, write you. And then I was talking to Vito in one of our meetings and I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing. I'm like, we should make a little posse and like get some consultants here who really know these beer styles well.
Because we want to do it like respect too.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We didn't want to hack one and call it Tasty's Treats and make a terrible beer.
Well, and not just that. When I texted you about this, my whole idea was really participating in the homebrew conference as homebrewers, not just as sponsors. So I want to pour the beer like at club night. And so that's the other reason
so you're
that we're
kind
like,
of hoping I have some left.
Yeah, I was, but I was more. This to me was more why we really can't screw it up because you can't be like, yeah, we really know about homebrew. Here's this awful thing,
and now coming in last place is Tasty Streets.
Yeah. So reach out to brewers that we know, and then I think then I'm like, well, I don't know how to get like Tasty's recipe. I don't have Tasty's recipe. But you must have then reached out to Lee.
Well, that's where I use Vito, the great communicator with everyone.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, you're friends with Sager and Tasty and Sager are always together. So you gotta solicit him to be part of this. And then I think you said, let's get Lee involved. Yep. And then that's what prompted emailing Lee, like, here's what we want to do. Any chance we could get, your dad's recipes. And you send us back a screenshot of like,
oh, man,
20 versions of the Dortmunder, but I remembered 07 being the year he took the silver. So I'm like, that one. And sure enough, thank you, Tasty. The notes are in there that he took silver in that year.
Oh, that's right. They were right in the recipe notes.
Everything is.
How did you have all of your dad's recipes, Lee?
So his computer, we still have access to his computer, and he kept meticulous notes with this Pro Mash, I think.
Of course he did.
Files in there.
Yeah,
of course.
Well, and that's
Surprise.
the amazing part is he's using a software. I mean, Pro Mash. We talk about Beersmith, and Mike worked on some pretty old school software for.
Oh man, you should try opening it in 2022. Yeah. It is some old software.
But I mean, in life, Mike was a programmer, and he worked on some old software.
Right.
So I think he liked the old school style of software.
Did it
of
take?
ProMash.
Did the computer take 4 hours to boot up?
It did.
Up the
It took a long time. It took a long time to boot up. I tried several different USB sticks to get the data off. It didn't come off right away. You know, it was not formatted in the right way or something. But,
Right. Okay.
Was it running Windows 3.11?
Yeah. Right. So found the recipe for us, which is great because I just thought I was like, well, we're going to be able to get close by talking to people, but having the exact recipe was awesome.
Well, and all of us who met Mike in his earlier years, and I say Mike because this was before he was Tasty, he would almost always either have a 2.5 gallon keg with him, and on that keg would be a label, a 4x6 label with everything that had to do with that recipe perfectly put on there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And he would sit at More Beer in the parking lot and chat with people as they came in and out on a Friday night, and it was so awesome. And that's what I always appreciated. And then if he gave you a bomber of beer, which he also did,
Had the recipe on it.
they would have the whole recipe, the water chemistry, the everything, the mash schedule.
Yeah. So I was just hoping to like find something like that or a memory. Like I was like, he must have talked to Matt so much about these beers that I just thought you were like, not that you'd memorize everything, but I
tried.
I thought we'd get
I tried
close.
to soak it all in.
Yeah, right. But so to actually find the recipe was super cool. And then, so we had Vito and Matt like really kind of look it over for us. I'm curious about your experience, like looking, like maybe your first look at it, Vito, if you were like, yeah, wow, this guy nailed it, or, you know.
Yeah, what stuck out to me was like Chris had said, all the way down to the water chemistry, you know, the parts per million of the sulfite level and things like that in 2007, which was, you know, just great to see that. So yeah, great notes across the board. So that was awesome and made it easily recreatable for us.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't surprising to me that there were 20 different versions of the same.
Right.
Do you guys remember one of his secrets to lagers that he kind of formulated over time?
The fast lager?
No, not the fermentation side, but the grain bill side.
Oh, mixing two-row, just regular base malt with Pilsner malt.
15% of two-row, because he just felt like most of the continental Pilsners were just lacking in kind of that body and some of the flavor.
Yeah, and it can be a little grainy.
Yeah.
When you're doing 100% continental Pilsner malt. Yeah.
Well, maybe this is a good time, since you're mentioning that, to kind of describe the style. Because I went back today to just look through what a Dortmunder. I just knew I loved the beer, right? And I didn't think a whole lot about it, but I wanted to know what some of the differences were. And first of all, I also discovered today, you know, I'm a little slow on the uptake sometimes. Is ours a Dortmunder export? Or like, is it a high enough ABV, or is ours just a Dortmunder? I couldn't find Dortmunder itself in the BJCP.
It was removed in 2015.
It's a Helles export.
Yeah.
Because it is referenced in the Dortmunder export that if it's not the right ABV, it wouldn't really be an export beer.
Ours is an export in gravity at minimum.
Perfect.
So,
Okay, good.
The part you cared about, I could tell.
Excellent. Because it's a German tax thing of why they would have to call it an export or something. And so actually, Mark from Brewhole last night asked me, and I was like, I don't fucking know, man. It's just a Dortmunder. I really don't know. So I had to ask questions for. Yeah, I had to ask you guys.
I always like the style because it's kind of a Goldilocks beer. It has the maltiness of a Helles and the hoppiness of a German Pils. It's right, like directly in between those, and I've always loved that
you
style.
You just read that verbatim off of BJCP without even looking at it.
Yeah,
it does say that, and but this is what I'm saying. I knew what I liked.
Does it say Goldilocks on the?
No, it does. Yeah, it says Matt Sager calls it a Goldilocks. No, but it really says that it has Helles and Pils, but it's in the middle, and part of what's in the middle about it is the softer maltiness and like kind of more of a perfect balance, right? And I think that's probably where Tasty got like some of his pale ale idea or pale malt idea, because to get something just a little, I don't know, not necessarily sweeter, but a Dortmunder can certainly have some sweetness to it. And I think maybe that was his two-row thing. You know?
Yeah, I've taken that advice that he gave me on that into other realms, and he would do that as well with his IPAs and his pale ales. He would throw in a small amount of Belgian Pils into his IPAs to soften the grain bill a little bit. I've always liked that, and I've taken it with me.
Yeah, into the Pro Brewery too.
Mm-hmm,
Look at you go.
Danville.
Yeah, of course. It's the beer is indigenous to the Dortmund industrial region of Germany, and the style's kind of been on decline in recent years. Like I went looking for one for us, even though I didn't. Even if I found one, I didn't expect it to taste very good. I couldn't even find one at even the big stores. Right
Not that you know it. I mean, it's been so long since I've had knowingly a Dortmunder export. I'm sure that it's brewed, but they call it something completely different because you put Dortmunder on a board, on a menu board, brewery, and they're going to get as far as Dort and be like, what's your pale ale?
Right. Unless you're me, and I'll be like, I'll take 6 of those. But you're right. It's not going to sell a lot of beer. Not even in Germany. Apparently.
But I've also noticed a lot of Helles bumping up in alcohol recently. We were in Minnesota for the Craft Brewers Conference and tons of great Helles there. But I noticed their starting gravities bumping up. Mm-hmm. And so they're kind of pushing themselves into this category.
That's what we do all the time, Americans. It's got to bump up the gravity, don't we? It does say, like, under the flavor that, like, neither the Pilsner malt or malt in general in this case, or the hops dominate. It's got to have, like, balance is kind of the key to this style, which is, I think, what I always liked about both Docks and Tasties is if you like hops, they're totally there. If you like malt, it's totally there. It just in a really nice balance. Should be pretty crystal clear, right?
Should be. Let's just use the word should.
Well, and so I went around looking for photos to put on the website because I didn't have a photo of us from Brew Day. I just put in Google search Dortmunder export, and I saw a bunch of different photos on homebrew sites. Not one of them was a clear beer. They were all like kind of cloudy, and I was like, "Well, you guys, we fucked this up." And so I didn't take any of those photos, right? But it should be. And I remember, so Tasty was a filterer. Right, he used the old school filters that you guys had.
Plate one, yeah.
Doc was more of a finer than a filterer. He would fine to get his, but they were both crystal clear.
They sound both like adulterers,
right?
Pilsner or lagers in general are incredibly difficult to clarify just with gravity.
Okay,
it's a very powdery yeast, and even at work at Danville, it takes a lot longer when we're finding a lager to get it nice and clear.
And do you otherwise filter then?
We don't filter at all. We fine everything.
Okay.
But eventually our lagers turn out crystal clear.
Right.
It's just a matter of patience.
Time and temperature.
Yep.
Well, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit when we taste it too. Chris and I did do a preliminary tasting, basically almost right after you kegged it, right?
Yeah, I was fresh off of COVID. I had zero flavor profile.
You couldn't taste. I could taste pretty well. But my main note was it just wasn't quite crystal clear yet.
It wasn't even close when we did it.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it hazy, but it was still
cloudy.
It was but it's just a little cloudy. But to me, it was still young. Like it hadn't even then lagered for 6 weeks. And so I just thought, this is going to be fine. Let's just so today I'll get to see the difference.
I would imagine by the time it's judged, even just in bottle, it'll fall out.
Still got another two weeks.
We bottled some that day just to do it. And then, so those are the ones that come out are labeled 1 on the cap.
Okay. So we'll get to taste that.
And then are like a week and a half later where it was crystal clear.
Nice. Okay. So that I think is a hallmark of the style. And then in the description on the BJCP, it also does talk about the water quite a bit. It says that it's a generally minerally water with high levels of sulfates, carbonates, and chlorides, which, again, under the description, kind of talks about why it does well with spicy noble hops, that those can kind of accentuate that. So is that what we did to the water, Vito?
Yeah, so we had Mike's exact notes, and I could pull it up, but we hit it within 5 parts per million.
Okay.
Let's see.
Do you want the notes?
Yeah, if you got it easier than here. Yeah, I want to say it was like 300 parts per million sulfite, which is pretty high. So it makes sense that reads what you're reading there.
Yeah.
the calcium level is pretty high too. Let's see, what do we got?
What do we put in to get sulfite?
Sulfite is gypsum, calcium sulfite. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And then we added a little calcium. So we started with RO water. I guess let's talk about the water in general, which made it really easy to build up to that profile. So we started with RO water.
Where did we get RO water? More beer?
I have an RO filter at work. So.
At work, okay.
Yeah.
So we got, all right. So you brought home all the water we brewed with?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
And then that morning, when you came over, we treated it, added a little acid to drop the pH there, calcium chloride. We also added, what else did we have in there? Calcium chloride, and I want to say a little, there was salt, Burton salt.
Okay.
Yeah. Which we got it within 5 parts per million.
So
just Burton. Yeah, that's what it was, Epsom. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But the ratio, the chloride to sulfite ratio
was 2 to 1. No, 3 to 1 actually, in favor of sulfite.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that it? So if we wanted to list all the, I can probably.
We should share this recipe.
Share the recipe.
I think we should definitely share this recipe on the print on the water side. I'm not getting.
Did my printer
can
do
you
its
read
weird
that
thing again?
I'll give that to Matt, and then I'll pull up my phone.
Multiple pages.
Okay, here we go.
Are we now trying to find the youngest eyes in the room that can read this page?
We added
McDowell, everybody.
Calcium chloride,
printer problem. I don't think
Epsom salt, gypsum. Those 3.
Say once again for me. I'm sorry.
Calcium chloride.
Yeah.
Epsom salt and gypsum.
Okay.
With gypsum being the highest, which is the calcium sulfite.
Okay. And that's it. So from RO water to that.
Yeah. And a little lactic acid too, just to adjust the pH.
Okay.
So there's a little magnesium in there as well.
Yep. Yeah. And I can get you here. Let's pull up the exact parts per million. Let's see.
People might want to know, but if we can publish it on the site.
Let's publish it. That's easier than me go through the phone here. Oh, wait, here I got it. Okay. There we go. Calcium 110. Magnesium 18, Na, which is sodium 8, chloride 51, SO2 271, and HCO3 16. All parts per million.
Got it. Okay. And so now, had we not used RO water, of course, we wouldn't have exactly done that, right? We would have had to do some more guesswork, which is also something Tasty kind of did. He would get reports from EB Mud or something to kind of figure out where we were. And it was pretty consistent. I think I remember him saying, and then sort of guess to add on top of that. Does that sound about right? Yeah.
So the water, is he on EB Mud in Clayton out there? Contra Costa. So he's on my same water. So I'm very familiar with it. Okay. It changes seasonally. And those reports are based on averages. So just if you can get a report online, great for homebrewers, start there. But what I found is I always would test every night before I would brew because the water seasonally does change. You might get algae blooms in the summer that affect numerous things.
They're pulling from different sources.
Yeah. So it's always best to test, but that water report gives you a great starting point. So if you got nothing, start there. The best thing is to get like a Lamont water kit and test, before you brew.
Got it. Okay.
I'm far too lazy.
Yeah, I always was
reverse osmosis.
I put it through a charcoal filter. It's fine.
Another tips for that. So all of our water has minerals in it, right? It has calcium, those things. So if you don't, what you could do is get your groundwater, filter it with a carbon filter to remove the chlorine. But then you could blend it 50-50 with distilled or RO water. So then you're not. So we had to add all those TDSs back in, total dissolved solids. But if you're blending like that, you could use the natural minerals that are in the water already.
Okay. All right. So we started from scratch because, again, we're trying the best
We're going for perfection.
We're going for perfection here. Yeah. Why there's a team of 20 of us to do it. All right. Well, what's next then in the recipe? Should we talk about the malt?
I think the malt, but then I think one thing that was really cool, and we talked about it that day, was the protein rest that he did, or the rest at 144.
Beta amylase
rest. That was kind of neat, and you don't see that often. There was 3 rests, right? There was the main, the 144, what does it say 54, there, Matt? 154, and then the mash out. Yeah. So that was kind of different.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about that too when we taste the beer and see if we notice what you think that might have done to it. Right?
Yeah, we talked about that day of can you taste, there's some people that are firm on the side of that, those rests make a difference, and then some that aren't.
Malt is pretty well
modified
at this point.
But if you think about what a beta amylase does, is it cleaves everything in half.
Sure.
And a alpha amylase chomps on the end. So the concept used to be, especially when things were unmodified, is like break everything down into tiny things and then let little Pac-Man eat it up. So I think that's kind of, he was going for the best of both worlds concept in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had brought up on Brew Day that it's an age-old discussion just on the Brewing Network. That like basically since Dan Gordon came in from Gordon Biersch and did his first show with us and declared with 100% certainty that it doesn't matter if malts are modified. If you truly want to brew a German-style beer, you must use steps. You have to modify it yourself.
I thought you were going to say quadruple decoction or something.
Well, on certain styles, he would say that too, which sparked literally a years-long debate, because then other pro brewers would come on and be like, fuck that. Malts are so highly modified that you'd never know the difference. And
there's people who argue the other way. Since they're already modified, so if you take them through an acid rest, now they're already acidified, and now you're doing damage to the whole thing before you start.
Yeah, right. So we used the tasty method, which was at least a couple steps.
Yeah, I think our main goal here was to recreate exactly. Be true. Yeah.
And the one thing Mike definitely was practical. Always practical. Never too much wasted steps or things. Like the fermentation was very practical. We'll go through that after this. But,
sure.
The mash, it's you're getting highly fermentable by going through that quick beta and then up to the alpha, and
right.
And there's no harm in doing it. It's not like he wasted a ton of time in that area.
Sure. Well, and then since we're talking about the mash, one thing we didn't do, and this is what I will blame if we don't win a medal.
Dog hair.
Dog hair.
I was just thinking about that.
Oh, right, Lee? Yeah. What was the Labradoodle's name?
Murphy.
Murph. That's
Murph
right.
dog. Yeah.
Oh, Murph was a cool dog. A big old Labradoodle.
Big Labradoodle. He was real. Active. Right. He's always running around on brew days. Always, Dad would spray him with the hose in the middle of the brew.
Right. Yeah.
Loved it. And the hair was everywhere. He couldn't.
Right.
Labradoodles aren't supposed to. They're not supposed to shed that much, but he did shed a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he got everywhere. It's real light, wispy hair, and so it would be inside of a clean keg or whatever. He'd
totally
fall in there.
Yeah. and Tasty, that was it. He'd be like, "Listen, if you don't have a pinch of Murph in there, that was his secret." So, like I said, that'll be that's what I'm blaming if we.
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Olin's Labrador there?
Olin's
there was a dog there.
Golden
there was a dog there.
So we did have, and that thing sheds like crazy.
So there must have been some hair in there.
There we go.
All right, then we might be okay. Mm-hmm. That might be okay.
Is that hair of the dog or dog of the hair?
That's dog of the hair, I think, Dad. And at this time, just another tasty anecdote, which I didn't learn this until his memorial, and it might have been you, Lee, who mentioned it. Tasty bought a vehicle for his dog. So he bought a Toyota 4Runner, same that I own, because the back window goes down like all the way, which is not, there's only like 2 vehicles on earth that have the back. It's not like the 70s that when we all had the station wagon with the back. So he, someone had said that Tasty literally chose the model of his truck so his dog could hang out in the back with his head out the window, not the side window, the literally all the way in the back.
Yeah, he bought it used a couple of years, and there was a particular year that he knew he wanted so that he could get that back window.
Right. Less slobber. Dan's saying less slobber on the side of the vehicle if it's just going out the back. Yeah. It's a brilliant.
Practical. I told you he's practical.
Practical guy.
I thought it was a brilliant move. Yep.
I always thought it was to deliver all those kegs up to NCHF that he brought with him.
Right, yeah.
It was packed.
It was always packed.
Yeah.
Also, his kegs are always delivered perfectly cold, each in its own igloo cooler. Yep. Remember that? Or at least the neoprene sleeve. Mm-hmm. And then he showed up at parties also with the igloo cooler and beer in it. Later he switched to the shorties, I think, but early on he still did a 5-gallon keg everywhere.
I think he got tired of rebrewing all the beer. He'd show up with a 5-gallon and everyone would drink it all. He'd be like, shit, I got to rebrew all that beer.
Right.
I'm taking a 2.5 next time.
Well, especially as it got later, because later he had 3 parties a week to go to. Like,
here's Tuesday's keg, here's Thursday's keg.
Yeah.
And he always told me he hated that.
I gotta go. He did sort of always. You just actually sounded like him too. Oh, I gotta go to this thing.
Did he hate it though?
No, he did not. He did not hate it.
He lived for it.
Yeah, he definitely. But it was nice to listen to him grumble about it. Okay, so
he used the little kegs from the beginning that I remember in 2001 in Dallas. Regan drove our van. And we packed all this beer in it as well. And he had to stop every 6 hours to re-ice, which was awesome.
That is hilarious.
And Mike had a little keg, and it was a small keg, and it was really good beer.
Tell me he had a temperature probe that he was
that would
checking.
that would have been too much gear.
But Mike had this great beer, but it was kind of in a cooler. Like you had to open the lid of the cooler to get to the picnic tap to do it. And he would only kind of give it to certain people at the club night, because it was the very first club night.
Right.
And Charlie Papazian comes by and Mike's like, please try my beer. And he did. Oh, this is good. And blah, blah, blah. And, like he probably says to everyone. But then about a half hour later, he comes back and he's like, can I have some more of that beer? I've had a lot of this other beer and that was really good beer. And that, I mean, that just like lit him up.
The moment for Tasty. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. All right, well, why don't we do this? We've got more to talk about on the recipe, but maybe it'll be more fun to have the beer in front of us while we talk about the grain bill and the hops and all of that. And then also we get to try the beer. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to get us to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to taste I'm not going to call it Tasty's Dortmunder until we taste it. Our Dortmunder until it passes muster. We'll see how it goes. Hang in there. You're listening to The Session. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We are back, and we've got Dortmunder in our glass. Dortmunder that we brewed in our glass. And the first thing we all notice, of course, is the color and the clarity. And so far we nailed it, right? It's like perfectly clear.
Yeah.
And didn't we like forget to put some of the findings in too?
No. And all this has is not isinglass.
Fish guts in this?
No, it does not have fish guts.
Werflock.
It's actually, what's the tab? Like what? That's not Werflock tea, but the other one we Kick tab.
Kick. Yep.
Yeah. Kick carrot. It's carrot.
Yeah.
I thought you said you forgot to put it in.
No, we put it in this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's all we did then. And the rest was just time.
So pretty sure
kettle findings.
Maybe you said you forgot it, but
I put it in another batch.
Okay, yeah. So it did come out just with that, and then enough lager time.
It'd be hard to believe it'd come out this clear without any kind of clarifier in there.
Okay, yeah. And how old is this beer now? What do we think? It's got to be 8 weeks, right? 7?
Hey Matt, when were you in
Something
Disneyland?
Like that?
That was the time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because we had to pick this brew day, and it was like, oh God, we all of us had one day we couldn't do it on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the time I was in Disneyland.
Okay, got it. All right, well, lagered enough. Let's just say it that way. Okay, and then you guys, I haven't even tasted it yet, but you guys have. Who wants to start? Vito? You want to start with your overall, your first impressions?
I'll start. Clarity's great. Nice head on there, small tight bubbles. Then I'd move on to the aroma, and I get a little acetaldehyde.
Yeah, apricots.
So that would be my negative ding on the aroma.
I was trying to pick that out. What it was. Definitely an off.
Green apple.
Yep, for sure. Moving past that, I do get the lager characteristic. Taste is nice. Yeah, I like the taste. Bitterness, I think, would be spot on for the style. Malt characters there. You get a little bit of that in the flavor, the acetaldehyde. But yeah, really nice.
I get less of it in the flavor than I do the aroma. So I was happy about that because I was sticking my nose in there going, there's just something. The malt still came through, luckily, even in the nose. I couldn't put my finger on that. But then in my first sip, I didn't really taste it. So that's at least
Can
nice.
you, speaking to the two who've done pro stuff, can you pick that up in the bottling process? Like, is that possible? Because I never got anything like this off the tap.
No,
and I'm going to go home tonight and smell it to see if it's there.
Unless, and I don't see this being the case in this beer, unless it's a bacterial issue, then I don't think it is.
Oh, I throw a little bacteria in you.
Yeah. You'll get it out of the keg for sure.
I think I got it out of the keg.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I was trying to, and I couldn't put my finger on it that day either. I just had said, I think it needs a little more age. I just was hoping that something else had to settle out. I never got
this aroma, like, later when I felt better and I could smell again.
Yeah. No, I think it's in the keg. Where would it come from?
Yeast health.
Or pitching or oxygenation.
Which
we did not
do. We were using dry yeast. And we didn't oxygenate the wort. So
we did not use dry yeast.
Oh, we didn't.
That might be part of the problem. But we used 4 packs, so that's why we overcame our, why use oxygen in terms of replication. We used 4 packs of White Labs.
Forgot to bring home an oxygen tank, basically.
I'm not blaming White Labs.
No.
I remember this conversation.
Chris White, it could have been his fault.
Yeah, I remember this conversation coming up now that we're talking through it. We're like, well, we'll shake it the best we can, right, to try and introduce as much oxygen.
Yeah.
And we were using liquid yeast. Thank you for reminding me of that. So honestly, I'd probably attribute that to it.
To not adding pure oxygen?
Yes, so
it was under oxygenated.
Yep.
Well, there's plenty of great beers that are shaken.
Yeah.
You don't
shaken, not stirred.
Yeah. When I was homebrewing, I did a lot of oxygenated oxygenated a lot of beers just by going out there and periodically shaking the carboy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely, this here doesn't strike me as a bacterial issue. It strikes me more as a yeast either pitching rate or it's definitely not yeast health because it's a fresh pitching rate or oxygenation.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't one of our theories with pitching so much that I thought I heard Vito say that day is that the O2 is only needed during replication.
Reproduction, yeah.
Correct.
So was your thought that there wouldn't be much of that since we put so much yeast in that like replication wasn't really...
Cell count. So yeah, I think we were even debating that. Chris might have said, let's use 3. And I'm like, no, use all 4 of those because we have no oxygen.
Okay.
I pushed for all 4.
But yeast is going to replicate itself no matter what. Does it really matter, the pitch rate?
It needs, and Matt could probably jump in here, the cell walls, what is the word I'm looking for in order to split and reproduce?
The sterols.
Sterols, yes, sterile levels. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting at is had we pitched 10 pitches, they still want to replicate and need oxygen.
Correct. You don't want to tax the yeast too much.
Yeah.
And there's a point at which you're taxing replication, you're taxing growth, and they'll start to basically spit out these for lack of a better term, congeners into the beer.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, acetaldehyde and diacetyl, of course, are congeners that can be spat out of the yeast cell into the beer.
Got it. Dirty little yeast. Okay. What are your other impressions? Past that, what do you think, Matt?
I'm digging the bitterness.
It's the right balance. It's got tasty. We should say nailed the balance part of the recipe.
Yeah,
right?
The balance is great. I think the acetaldehyde is kind of hiding the hops that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
The German continental hops.
Yeah.
Because those can be really neat, very soft in this beer.
Mm-hmm.
But the balance is right on. I love the color, love the clarity.
Mm-hmm.
The bitterness is right on. So
okay. Yeah. So what's our actual malt bill there, Vito? Why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, so we've got Pilsner malt, which is 48%.
Okay.
16% pale malt 2-row.
Do we use Viking pale malt? Do you remember what we used?
Chris, you put in the order.
We used extra pale or we used Breeze. I can't quite remember.
Okay.
And then Munich malt, 16% Munich malt, which equates out to 4 pounds for this batch size. And then this is an interesting one, 12% flaked soft white wheat. And then 8% Carapils dextrin malt for head retention.
Okay. So would you say the only non-traditional things there are the 2-row pale malt and the wheat?
If we were going like classic styles, yeah, probably. Those would not, because the hops
were tasty additions.
Those were tasty
is
additions,
what I'm kind of saying. He wanted the wheat and the pale malt.
Let me also add that pulling the beer off of yeast prematurely can contribute.
Didn't have enough time to clean up.
Yeah.
And I don't think we had that particular problem because of the extended time due to COVID.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were like
stayed on
sick.
there.
You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So staying on too long wouldn't do it.
No,
just coming off too early because it wouldn't clean up those byproducts. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Much like diacetyl needs to be cleaned up. Okay.
And we followed Tasty's favorite fermentation cycle, which would have made it shorter, but that was going. Actually, I don't have the fermentation; I have the mash, but it's
you still spend. I would think it was like 9 to 12 days, or maybe 12 full days. Yeah, so it was plenty of time on the the yeast.
But we were way longer than that,
and we even went longer because of CBC and COVID.
But the fermentation schedule, if I remember right, was, and I had to translate it to Celsius, and that was its own ordeal. But a certain 1/3 of fermentation's done at roughly 52.
I think it was 52, then up to 54, 56, and say it was like 4 or 5 steps,
and then 61 for a bit.
De-rest,
and it stayed at that 61 for a while, maybe too long. I don't know.
From grain to glass, what was the time frame? Do you know off the top of your head?
Grain to in the keg at least 3 weeks, if not 3.5, probably.
Okay.
And this is a great beer, by the way, but at the BJCB judging me, I had to pick out.
No. And it's what I wanted you to do too. Anyway, and like I said, I tasted it even initially, but I couldn't put my finger. I'm not very good with off flavors, other than knowing something's there, and then I forget what they are after all this time, even. So, Lee McDowell, your honest impressions of our
screwed
beer.
My dad's beer up.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, luckily I'm more of a beer drinker than a beer brewer. I smell what you guys are smelling. I would describe it as almost like a bread dough kind of smell, maybe.
Well, that part, that's the good part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I like that part.
Look for like fruity, estery kind of that.
The flavor, I think, is really good. I like it. It's delicious.
I think it's a good first attempt. I mean, how many times did he do it? And when he found
there was like
9
or 8 or 9.
Okay,
just files that he had in his computer, and he might have iterated on it.
So, are we going to make this an annual thing? Is that what you're telling me?
I think
maybe we can make that part right next year.
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna have to.
We'll screw up something else.
We also
me and you're going to do this for the next 20 years until we win a medal, Chris Graham. That's my goal.
Bronze.
We talked about doing a commercial release of this at Danville. What do you think of that, Matt?
We have spoken about that, haven't we?
We did.
But you have to call it something different so you can sell it. You have to call it like a German pale ale or something.
Oh no, call it Tasty Treat. But
but the style.
So absolutely, that was one of the things that Vito and I talked about, was the possibility of doing a commercial example of this as well. So, and I'd be more than happy. Honored.
You get the name down.
Well, I would make us buy several of those kegs, Matt. So I'm down with that. Yeah, especially if we nail it. Good. Okay.
Well, we got the clarity.
Yeah.
We got something else in there.
We got the balance. It's just being covered up. In fact, I think it would be near perfect. Dan McDowell is leaving.
Nice.
Thanks. It's very nice to meet you, and I hope we see you again.
Guys.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You got it.
Oh, can't wait.
So, actually think it would be otherwise a pretty high scoring beer, and this is part of the fun part, I think, of and what we've been saying for years on the Brewing Network of kind of why people should enter competitions, because like we're getting that feedback now, but others who can't sit around in a room like this are going to get it from their judges sheets. We're probably going to get it on ours. It doesn't go away, right? It's not like
no.
Shit.
It amplifies, I think, because I think that's what it's doing right now.
I do have a great off flavor tasty story. When we first opened, one of our beers was pretty freaking flawed. And I saw it, and it was right before I had actually ended up dumping it down the drain. And Mike had come into the brewery, and he was sitting at the bar, and he's sitting next to a guy who was drinking that said beer, and he says, I typically don't like this kind of beer, but I like this. And then Tasty turns to him and goes, "Then you still don't like that beer."
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I loved that story, and I take it with me, and shit, man, I've brewed stinkers and I've dumped stinkers, and I try not to let stinkers go down go through the faucet at work, but
sure,
that one time sticks out.
You still don't like it. I love it.
Well, that's one of the worst parts of homebrewing in my mind is how many times have we all heard it? Oh, I typically don't like beer, but I like yours.
Yeah.
Is that an insult, or is that a
backhanded?
It's because it was free.
Yeah. Well, that's just it too. Like your friends will never tell you like, "Oh, that beer's flawed." Dude.
Right. Right. No, and only in even your friends that will only in competitions, and like I said, we've said this for years. Tasty used to say it. Doc was a bigger advocate. He's like, you really need those you need those notes. You need people to pick apart your beer if you really care about becoming, a better brewer.
Well, that's one thing I love that Doc always wanted to do. Whenever we were going to do something as a club or as a group, he's like, "All right, so we're going to have a tasting first, and we're going to vet which beers are going to go there." Like, his tasting booth at your place. It's the idea of like, everyone's going to say they made great beer and that their friends said it was great, but it's like, we're going to do it together.
Their wives say, "Oh, it's great."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Get this out of my house. It's fantastic.
Right.
Mike Tasty was actually a big proponent of that too, especially, with those, we'd get together and be like, we're trying to win best beer at this competition or this thing. So we got to vet these beers. And
right.
And to that point, when he would go to Doe's meetings, he wouldn't put his bottle on the tasting table and just leave it there.
For anybody.
He would carry it around with him and solicit feedback. Looking somebody in the eye
from certain people. Yeah.
From anybody who wanted to come up. He would carry the bottle with him. He wouldn't set it down. So, whoever tasted it would, taste it and then go off on their own way. He wanted people to taste it. He wanted their feedback.
Yeah.
Face to face.
Yeah. And it worked.
Yep.
All the best brewers we know really want that feedback and to be critical.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cool things about judging, since we're talking about that, is that it kind of removes that element of face to face or even your environment. You're honestly giving your impression of that beer at that point in time without any type of feedback, because we've all sat in circles and you'll be like, "Oh, I get pineapple," and then all of a sudden everybody gets pineapple, or whatever. So it's like, I love that about judging, is that you have that honest expression of what you personally take away from that beer.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Do we want to pour the first one that we see if there's any?
I just want to open one and smell it at least.
Yeah,
I doubt people are really going to want to swig it down.
So we bottled some, like we were saying, about 2 weeks earlier, week and a half, something like that earlier, and that was the one that wasn't quite clear yet. But I bet it cleared in the bottle, is what I'm guessing.
It did.
So with this one that I tasted, I would give it a 28 to 29.
Okay.
Take away the acetaldehyde, I'd give it a high 30s, maybe low 40s.
It's
okay.
Too.
Yeah.
It's in this one as well.
Yeah. All right, we're trying this one out too. These are the things that happen.
Yeah.
What you gonna do? What's the? Let's go through the rest of the recipe too. What were the hops?
It's there as well. So let us see.
And this bottle has a bit of sediment in the bottom too.
This was, I remember when we were looking at the hops, it was like Santium. I haven't, used or heard of that in a while. So that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hallertau, which
and this was in 07 was pretty much hop shortage. So it's kind of like get your hand on what you can get.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised it didn't have like Aracia or.
So 1 ounce of Santium at boil, which gives you about 18 IBUs, and then 2 ounces of Hallertau with 1 minute left to go, which gives you roughly 1.5 IBU.
Mm-hmm.
For a total right around 20 IBUs. 19.
Pretty moderate there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think all that would come through more without the
And the higher sulfite level accentuates the bitterness, the crispness. So that'll give you, it's only 20 IBU, but it probably tastes a little more, 25, 30 or something like that.
Yeah. And what did we brew on? A Brewzilla, right?
A Brewzilla, a little 5-gallon electric.
All in one electric.
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite parts of the day too, is seeing that little badass thing go to work.
Those are so cool.
Easy.
It is so cool. Like, I don't know. It just not just easy, but cool. Like it just does everything. And it allowed us to do the step mashing really easy too.
Yeah. It's all programmable
step mash. The one thing I love about it is the delayed start, so you can get your strike water ready for you in the morning. Which normally, I brew on an old Warbeer sculpture and waking up 2 hours before, an hour before to hit my strike temperature. But being able to set it and just wake up and mash in is great.
It's pretty nice.
Matt and I are getting ready to brew on a Brewzilla this weekend.
We sure are. Yeah.
Doing some more homebrew, huh?
Yeah.
I like that.
Might make a couple Mai Tais for the day.
Possibly.
Yeah. It I don't know. It just was really easy to use, and I just liked the way it all functioned and made me want a Brewzilla, man.
Those little systems are sweet.
Yeah, and you guys sell like every single all-in-one, I think, but you like that one.
Yes,
for your own home use.
And if you wanted to distill water.
Yes, if you're not trusting your water source, or you want to start with distilled water for your recipe, you can do that too.
Oh, really?
And if you happen to accidentally make a whiskey or something else, that just happens.
Yeah, you can accidentally.
But they're digitally set temperature wise, so that you just. I hate to use the old phrase "set it and forget it," but that's like the coolest part when you're trying to still normally you're trying to control a flame and flow rate.
No, the electric part was pretty sweet.
Water.
Just water.
Oh, essential oils too. Yes. So I'm really into that.
Yeah. And then the other thing, because this is the fun of brewing with a guy who owns a homebrew shop, is we in our fermentation we had a glycol system cooling the thing. So fermentation temperature certainly wasn't an issue we had. What was the glycol system we used?
A little Ice Master 2.
Okay.
And so brought that home, and then we used a is it Fermentosaurus? What do we call it? Firmzilla.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So from the same people then?
Same people, yeah.
I see. It was a weird, maybe I can get pictures of this too to put up. I think Joe has them. It's like a weird cylindrical, like an orbital sort of fermenter with a coil running through the middle of it, right?
Yeah, I think they call it the temp twister. Yeah, it's think like an immersion chiller.
Yeah,
same idea, but you use that to control your fermentation temperature. So the copper, or I think in this it's stainless steel sits inside your wort,
and so it does touch the wort.
Yeah,
I couldn't figure that part.
Direct contact.
Okay. Yeah, it is okay. Right down the center of it, and then that has glycol running through it with a temperature.
Water that's from that has glycol in it. Yes.
Okay.
Mixture, yeah. You could use water, but glycol allows you to go below the freezing point without the water freezing up.
I see.
Yeah.
And then you were able to just program that for each of our steps of fermentation temperature too, right?
I programmed me.
So you walk out there and hit the button 5 times.
That one only works in Celsius, so that's where I had to really bear down to high school, and I forgot it. So,
so you ask Siri every time, yeah.
Were you using the digital or the Inkbird that you had remote Wi-Fi, right?
But that's not on the glycol unit.
Oh, gotcha.
So I have that for other things.
Gotcha.
Okay. So then we went from there, and so what were our fermentation steps again? The temperatures that we did?
Do you have that from the recipe?
I do. Let's see here.
But that fermenter too. And if people want to see video shots of this, they can go to the Free Beer Friday episode from May 20th on YouTube.
Perfect.
And
of our brew day.
Of our brew day and the fermenter and all that.
That's got the exact fermentation steps, the recipe, all that's on there.
Yeah.
So that is on the More Beer YouTube page. You can go check that out under the Free Beer Friday video section.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. You can see all of this stuff. Okay, so what were the steps?
Actually, I just have the mash steps on here. I do not have the fermentation steps, but we use Tasty's fast lagering method.
But I'm pretty sure it's 52 for 1/3.
Yep.
Then you go up to 56 for 1/2.
Yeah, it's like 4 degrees jump. Yeah.
And then you go up to 59 for it's like another third, and you have to sit there and do all the calculations to figure out where you are, and then you finish it at 61.
Okay,
and hold there.
And hold it there until you basically crash it and
exactly
and transfer.
And then that fermenter is cool because that's pressurizable. and it has a floating dip tube. So then from there, I just cleaned and sanitized the keg and did a closed transfer.
Okay.
So there's no
That's
oxygen
great.
pickup or anything like that.
Right. Then put it into your Comos kegerator, which is where I came over and saw it, and then we bottled off of the kegerator.
Right. The Nuka Tap counter pressure bottle filler,
which was pretty sweet too. Yeah. And my kegerator has this too, the Nuka Taps, which you can twist off the end and put on different ends. And then this one was to go into a counter pressure filler, right?
Yeah.
Which there's also video of. Did you put that up yet?
not yet.
Not yet.
Soon.
Okay.
Subscribe.
It's worth watching because Chris and I fucked it up a couple times, but you can see how you kind of get it dialed in too.
Once you get like any counter pressure bottle filler, it takes a bit to learn. Like, okay, what's going to be my exit rate? What's going to be my pressures and such. And once you get it, it's pretty easy.
Right.
But getting that flow rate of it fill, that's the hardest part to get set up.
Yeah. But it was also super cool to just leave it in your kegerator and be able to like switch out these attachments, do the bottle fill, and then just put it back on tap.
Well, and that's where the duo-tight stuff makes it so fast and easy, where you're not taking hose clamps off and trying to find barbs to shove in there. It's just
Perfect.
Yeah. Watch our video on that, too. That one must be up by now. When I got my kegerator, that one's up or coming up? That one's up.
Oh, that one's been up
because
for a while.
that was the other thing that made me fall in love with the Comos kegerator is this you just push it. You know, like the copper plumbing fittings, like the no weld. So it reminds me like of that type of stuff. You just push it in and it does all the work for you.
What do they call a shark bite or something like that? But then there's the John Guest fittings, which have been around for
Those are
years.
great.
And these are just like them. They're just called duo-tight.
Okay, got it. And yeah, just removing them is simple. So like Graham and I were talking, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw away the hose every time because now I don't have to deal with hose clamps or whatever. So if it's, like instead of cleaning, like running all the cleaner through it, we're just going to throw away.
I'm already on my second thing.
Are you?
And I recycle them. I put them in the recycle bin. I'm sure the county
that's
loves
what I
me
meant.
for that.
Yeah. Nobody recycles anymore. China stopped taking it. So don't worry. Just throw it in the garbage. Anyway, all of the ease of use with this stuff. And so, I was fascinated even by the bottling because I would remember like going to Doc's house and like he would have out this entire contraption. It was the more beer counter pressure filler, but it had to be done in a special way.
You got all your T's and your Y's and your tubing. And then when you were done, you had to kind of take off some things and recap them up and pain in the butt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm still proud of us for doing this. I'll be curious what the score sheets come back like.
They won't be good.
I think they're going to be in the low.
28 or 29.
They're going to be. I was going to say the low 20s. You know, judges are pretty generous. They don't want to give you a 5. You know,
that's usually what I do is mid to high 20s because I know it's not going to go past that, and I don't want to just make somebody feel bad, right? So it's
right.
You want to put some money on this?
Huh?
Over under?
I'll put
the over under. If if it didn't have this one fatal flaw, we should totally have done that. We would absolutely.
Well, I'm going to continue brewing this recipe.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be one of my things and
the challenge.
One of the shows that I'm trying to do for Free Beer Friday is I'm a guy who loved to brew, loved 3-vessel systems, loved gadgets and parts all over my garage, and then I would lose half of them and then go to brew 6 months later and couldn't find it. My wife's using it for lobsters or something and, and whatever. And when I first brewed on this electric system, I was like, my God, it's stored in like this hidden closet and it was so easy to use. And I didn't even have to worry if I was out of propane and all these things. And so I just started using that more and more. And now it's like the other thing. I have 9-year-old twins. Where's the time? There's no time. I have a swim team, which sucks.
Yeah.
So my Saturdays are pretty much gone all the time. And so it's like, okay, so now my next thing, and I already did this recipe once and brewed it in 2 hours. And when I say I brewed it in 2 hours, I cleaned up and was done at 2:06. So I failed. But we're going to start airing those. And the only thing I get to do is preheat the water, but try to make modifications of how long you're going to mash for, how long you're going to boil for. But I'm also playing with, there's a 220 version of the
system. 220. Okay. Like the electrical part.
Yep.
Okay.
So I just did last Friday a test, and the 110, which I've been using forever, the equivalent. This is the new 4.0 version of them. But the 110, to get from 65 degrees tap water to a boil took 2 hours. And to do it in my 220 version was just under an hour. So that's how much time savings the bigger burners get you.
Okay.
That's the whole reason I got into brewing. It's home brewing. And now that I'm a pro brewer, I have very little interest in spending 8 hours on my weekend firing up a sculpture, a huge sculpture system. And I can see that, because yes, I still think it would be cool to just brew something fun, brew something crazy at home. And I don't want to fire up a 10, 20 gallon system. And if I could bust something out in a couple hours, I could see that being great.
And there's quite a few of those all-in-ones that are just fun and cool and do exactly that.
Well, that's why I like the 5 gallon size now too. We can buy so much great beer. I mean, look at your tap board. Go down to Danville Brewing, and I'll plug them a few more times. Danville Brewing.
Thank you.
But you go to any of these bottle shops now, and you could just buy any beer you want. And that's why a lot of us started homebrewing. Is you couldn't we'd go to a bar.
Right.
And it'd be like, please have Sierra Nevada or Sam Adams on tap. Otherwise, it was Bud Miller or Coors. I mean, they owned everything.
So it was better to brew 10, 15, 20 gallons. So, and your friends.
Brew more. And you'd brew these crazy things called a pale ale or something like that.
Yeah.
And now it's funny because now I'm excited I'll probably just keep brewing this recipe because it's dialed in.
Yeah. And it's one you want to drink at home that you can't buy.
Yeah, and I use dry yeast, so I don't have to worry about this problem as much.
Well, so what does that mean? Why do I not have to aerate dry yeast? Is yeast
the sterols are in there as part of the production of them?
Yeah, it's the way they grow and reproduce it. They're constantly introducing oxygen, and I believe they're also using a different medium instead of malt or malt extract. They're using molasses, I believe.
Could be molasses,
which has a higher nitrogen levels. All these other things. So. The papers that I've read, looking side by side with like traditional, it's an anaerobic fermentation versus aerobic fermentation is basically what's happening. So the way they're harvesting dry yeast is aerobic, which is the Krebs cycle for all you geeks out there.
Wow. So people just turned off the show.
Yeah. Sorry guys.
No.
Why don't you go through the Krebs cycle for us, Vito?
Let's go through the Krebs cycle. The metabolism.
This is what we talked about you last night on the show, Vito.
Did you?
Me and Mark were like, Vito knows everything. He just,
I'll throw one last thing in there. And for those who have heard me say it like 2 or 3 times that I don't use oxygen because I use dry yeast, I only do it on the first time use. I don't reuse dry yeast.
Yeah.
You can, but you should use oxygen if you do that.
As soon as you've done that, you've done an anaerobic fermentation. So those yeast cells on that side of it do not have the sterile content that like Matt was talking about earlier.
Sure. Well, and using liquid yeast this time, we're not just fans of White Labs, although we are. That's what Tasty would have used.
Because is what he used.
Because back then, like dry yeast wasn't even this cool.
Sure.
So, and he was a White Labs guy. So we also just were sticking true to the recipe.
And I will bring an O2 system home eventually.
Yeah.
It's keeping the stones sanitary. That's my number one. Like it keeps me up at night, and I'm trying to do everything homebrewing now where nothing keeps me up at night.
Yes,
that's my goal.
I love your new goal. Yeah, it used to just be how lazy can I be and still brew, and now you have this other don't be kept up at night while I'm doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's how lazy I can brew without worrying about it.
Yeah. All right. Well. It's going to be fun at NHC. I'm guessing, I thought about this because I think we thought for a minute we'd brew it again so that we had some to bring to NHC.
2 weeks away.
But now it's 2 weeks away. We can't even do it. So maybe we can bring some bottles or something that somebody could
Anyone
try.
Really want to taste it after we talk about
it? Yeah. But it was fun to do, and it's going to be fun to be at the conference. And who knows? Maybe we'll get a really shitty judge who can't taste acetaldehyde. And
a whole patch of them. COVID rips. Ooh, wait. What if COVID ripped through early?
They don't taste anything. Yeah. All right. Well, it was a lot of fun. I want to thank all of you for helping Chris and I do this and being a part of the show.
Thank you.
Definitely a lot of fun. Lee, thanks for finding that recipe for us.
Of course, my pleasure.
I predict it will not be the last time we ask you to mine your dad's recipes.
Let's do it again.
Yes, absolutely.
Try something else. His Janet's Brown recipe is just out there, right?
Yeah, that's out there.
That's
Like 3 or 4
knowledge.
iterations of that.
Yeah, that one's out there. But he's had quite a few. Is this the only medal he's won? I don't remember that. He must have won more. He did quit the competition at some point. He felt like he had accomplished enough and wasn't really competing, even though he was still brewing.
Well, what did he win long shot with?
Oh, it was a IPA.
That was a double IPA.
Double IPA, yeah. So that recipe's out there.
That they couldn't brew for like a whole year. They had to brew it like the year later because it was because of hop shortage, right?
Yeah.
I used to do for that contest.
Leave it to Tasty. He's like, I'm gonna make them a double IPA.
We were there, like it was Sam Adams and us, like who put that on, and all the entries came to me, and I had to hand type them into like a spreadsheet.
Right.
And one year they went with like, use an exotic ingredient. It was well after Mike had won his spot, and this guy put like this saffron that you can only get in like 1 week of the year on this one island that you can't get to but anything from like a hang glider, and only like a millimeter is grown a year. He wrote this whole essay on this thing, and I'm like, well, why the hell are you entering? Because they can't reproduce that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was fun though. When Tasty won, it was super fun. He went on the tour. But he got to be on the tour for 2 years.
Yeah, he milked it good.
Right?
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Well, how cool was that him and Alex, like, two locals won? Like, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. That was pretty awesome. All right. Well, we'll be mining you for more recipes later, Lee. Thanks for coming out and being part of it.
My pleasure.
That was cool. All right. Well, I'm going to get us out of here. That's our show for today. Oh, my computer's breaking as I speak. Thanks for getting all that beer to us, Chris Graham. You did most of the work.
Hey?
Yeah.
There?
You and Vito. I just supervised.
I went to Disneyland.
Yeah, you did. You reviewed the recipe, we hope.
Yeah, I did.
You never said, why didn't you put O2? It's all Matt's fault.
All right. Don't forget to thank our sponsors. Check out the show page on thebrewingnetwork.com. I will try to get this recipe file up there. I'll try to get some photos from the brew day up there. Give me a few days on that, and I'll make it all happen. So
it's all there on the Free Beer Friday show.
Or it's on the Free Beer Friday show. Yeah. The pictures are, but not the recipe.
The recipe, I think.
Oh, that's on the page too?
It's going to be.
Okay. Go to the More Beer YouTube page, and you can see most of what we talked about there too. So
check out the mashup.
There we go. Is that you? Is that your show on there too? Nice.
Plug.
Like it.
Danville Brewing.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Take care of yourselves and your beer. The Session is a production of the Brewing Network and brought to you by More Beer. Check them out at morebeer.com. Find more content and live video of this show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brewing Network. For sponsorship opportunities and information, please reach out to advertising@thebrewingnetwork.com. To reach our hosts, contact feedback@thebrewingnetwork.com.